The truth is accepted by those who are disposed to receive it, and oftentimes no amount of argument can persuade someone who is closed to the truth, to understanding it. This is one of the mysterious ways that God's providence in destiny sort of reveals itself. We look around the world and we must recognize that not all have been called to the font of baptism to receive regeneration and salvation, right? And not all who hear the gospel preached receive it for salvation. Paul goes to all sorts of places. He goes to Athens, right? And he starts preaching, and some people want to kill him for it. But other people are like, oh, well, that's nice, Paul. I liked that. Let's hear about it another time. Right? There was a curiosity there, but not an alacrity of spirit that sort of indicated that they received the truth of the message that Paul was saying. Right? When one who is pagan hears the gospel, or even Jewish who hears the gospel of Christ preached, and the Spirit moves in them, they immediately come and ask, as the Jews did of Peter, "Brother, tell us what we must do to be saved." And the answer that Peter would give, of course, is to be washed in the waters of baptism and receive the Spirit. The people here are just confused, though. They're perplexed at how Jesus just speaks the truth. He doesn't try to argue it. He doesn't look at the sermon on the bread of life. We call it the bread of life discourse in John 3. He's in Capernaum. He's in the synagogue, and he's saying, "Hey, as if it was normal to hear this, you must eat my flesh and drink my blood, or you won't have any life within you. And I'm the bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats of this bread will live forever." And people are like, "Oh, that's weird. That's weird. I'm not going to follow him anymore." And he doesn't start to beat them over the head with clever arguments and great explanations of the Old Testament to explain how what he's saying is to be understood. He just simply says it, and he relies on the Spirit of his Father, the Spirit given to him that belongs to him, to go and to probe the heart of that person, and then to return that heart to him or not, right? And it's entirely up to the wisdom of God, which is inscrutable to us, to determine whether that person loves God or does not love God. And the reality is we have all sorts of really great people. We call them good people, right? Walking around the earth who haven't been regenerated. They're still enemies of God. They can be friendly to us, but they're enemies to God. Because they haven't responded to the truth that is all around them. They're too busy judging life by the standards of the world, right? Paul says, "Now a natural man does not accept what pertains to the Spirit of God, for to him it's foolishness, and he can't understand it because because it is judged spiritually." Right? When we live from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed, if we're perceiving and judging all the things that we do according to sort of the economic merit that they have of my life, right? We're all our own little economies, right? What's going to be good for me? What's going to be a net profit or a net loss to me by the end of the day? If we're judging everything that we do based on that, should I eat 3 meals a day or should I fast one? Well, if we consider things by the good of the world, we'd say, no, my body is a good thing. It deserves its full nutrients. Therefore, I'm going to eat all three meals. A spiritual man might say, well, because today is the day of the anniversary of the death of my grandfather, I'm going to abstain from lunch, let's just say. A spiritual gain, certainly not one that would be judged to be a gain in the physical world. And most people, even Christians, sadly, live their whole lives based on that. What's the point in getting up in the middle of the night and coming and spending an hour in front of what looks like a piece of bread? What's the point of that? I'm just losing sleep. I'm going to be grumpy the next day. Right? And even that's admitting that while we judge things based on the world, we ourselves are not very naturally virtuous because we can't control ourselves if we don't have, what some scientists told us was the appropriate amount of sleep to sleep, right? Because we're judging everything based on the world. So I say this is sort of the premise of several different jumping off points. One is that we are not responsible for making people believe in Jesus. We're responsible for radiating Christ, for presenting the odor of the Spirit to those who, like Pepe Le Pew, would smell the aroma of the Spirit and let nothing stop them from getting to its source. Right? That's our job. Our job is not to beat people over the head. It's not to come up with cleverly devised plans. It is absolutely not to change the truth to make people say, oh yes, well that I can agree to. How many times, and I hope none of us have done it here, but I know that I have in high school when I was immature and didn't know much, and I thought it was more important for somebody to say, yes, I could be a Christian, than to actually present Christianity to them. And manipulating the face of the church is no way to get somebody to agree to it, right? We call in marriage, if somebody misrepresents themselves to their spouse, they don't actually get married. That's an invalid marriage, right? If we misrepresent the church to somebody because we think, if only it was softer or here on this corner, if only it was less defined here in this place, then they'd say yes. Then they'd say I could be a Christian, and then we'd get them. But no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't get them. Your aim would be off, right? You'd be shooting down the barrel, but your aim is off, and so you're not hitting your target because you're misrepresenting the church, right? So our job isn't to convince somebody of the truth. Our job is to live the truth, right? And our job is to judge things according to the spiritual realities, right? This is why Christians, when we really live like Christians, we look a little weird, right? The obvious example of that, and it's been caricaturized a little bit, it's become a little bit normal in culture, but like the Fish Fry Fridays, like everybody in the Southern Baptist land down here knows that they know when Lent is. Why? Not because they went to Ash Wednesday. It's not because they're spending time thinking about the suffering of Jesus. It's because all the Knights of Columbus have their signs out on the road saying that there's a fish fry on Friday, right? That's how they know that, right? And when we live in a way that puts us sometimes at odds or makes us stand out a little bit, we look a little bit weird by the world's standards because we're doing something that to them it doesn't calculate. What's the benefit for that? What's the point? It just seems oppressive. I can't do just what I want anytime I want because the Spirit of the Lord instills discipline and even within a culture, it instills a discipline within a culture. The Church of Jesus Christ is filled with the Spirit that gives that church discipline, and all its members live by it because all of its members are imbued by the same Spirit. This is why we follow the governance of the Holy Father, of the Pope. This is why we obey our bishop, right? Because we're all members of the same church that's imbued by the same Spirit, and that Spirit is acting and living and governing through them. And so we know if, for example, Archbishop Hartmeyer gets on the horn later today and says, some horrible thing has just happened in, I don't know, Peachtree City. I want all of the Christians in the Archdiocese of Atlanta to fast from dinner today. We should all do that. And if we don't, it would be gravely irregular. It would be gravely disordered because we're acting against the Spirit. Right? We're not judging things based on the worldly value, or we're not judging things based on the spiritual value, which is immeasurable when we obey the bishop. But we're judging them based on worldly standards. I'm an emancipated, mature adult. I can make my own decisions. Yeah, go ahead. The devil thought that too, right? It's like it's not about your ability to choose good things. It's about your ability to enter into the movement and the shape of the Spirit of God, right? And allow the shape of your own physical self, which is a tortured version of self because it's abused by so many betrayals and so much loss and so much weakness, right? To let the Spirit of the Lord sort of guide. And this is what this is why people are so surprised at Jesus, because he's so calm in the truth. He's so deliberate, he's so calm, he's so confident that he just simply says, be quiet, come out of him. He doesn't have to yell, he doesn't have to make grand gestures, he doesn't have to wave crucifixes in front of the possessed person and throw holy water on him. We have to do that. He doesn't have to do that. He's just like, stop, come out of him. And just like that. Because he understands, obviously he's God. He understands the truth of God. He's probed the mystery of God. And God has shared his Spirit with us so that we can probe the mystery of God too. So that if we choose to stop investing our knowledge and our priority in the world, we free up bandwidth to enter into a meditation on the mystery of God's own divine life. And in that, snatch that aroma of the Spirit and find our way unimpeded, unhindered, to the very depths of the heart of God.